planning meeting. Roll call, please.
Johnston here.
Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Minutes.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2016.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Johnston abstains.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski aye.
Seifert, aye.
Great. Just a couple of housekeeping. Mayor Scafidi could not be with us tonight. I will be chairing the meeting. And also, item 4D will be held tonight.
Item for what?
4D.
D.
For the Classic Lanes conditional use.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just as a point of clarification, since we only had 4 members vote on the minutes, we will have to hold that for the next meeting so that we have a majority vote.
Well noted. Okay. Carrie, when you're ready, significant common council actions.
There were none.
Very good. Short and sweet. We'll move right on to item 4A, an exchange of city-owned lands. Carrie, are you taking that?
Yes. This is in relation to the properties at 7600 South 6th Street, which is owned by the city, and 600 West Drexel Avenue. During the preparation of site plans for 600 West Drexel Avenue, the developer learned that additional right-of-way would be obtained along 6th Street and Drexel Avenue, which necessitated the reconfiguration of the lot. So the city offered to pursue an exchange of a portion of the adjacent land for the right-of-way so that the project could proceed. The city-owned property contains floodway and flood fringe, and due to its unique shape and the presence of floodway, the lot could not support compliant private development if sold to a non-adjacent landowner. The exhibit on the screen shows the portion of the city-owned property that would be given to 600 West Drexel in exchange for the 15-foot wide right-of-way along 6th Street and the 10-foot wide right-of-way along Drexel Avenue. Floodway and flood fringe would be unaffected by the exchange. The additional land is for compliance with building and parking setbacks as well as safe access to and from Drexel Avenue. It would further the objectives of the city by allowing for the redevelopment of an underused corner lot. The proposed use was previously reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission and the Common Council earlier this year, and this exchange would support that project. Since the land in question is city-owned, the Plan Commission is required to make a recommendation on this proposal to the Common Council. The rezone of the additional land and incorporation into the existing conditional use permit for 600 West Drexel Avenue is next on the agenda for your consideration. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that they favorably consider the exchange of a portion of the city-owned land at 7600 South 6th Street with portions of 600 West Drexel Avenue. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I think I have one comment card. Mr. Dagner, was that you for 4A? Please approach. You know the deal. Name and address.
Thank you. Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. My question is, they're supposed to show the sidewalks according to our conditions restrictions, but I don't see them. Are there going to be sidewalks there?
Part of the reason for the exchange is for additional right-of-way to accommodate sidewalks at a future date, yes.
Oh, because it's, this is right part of the Drexel Town Square with 6 and I hope that you will make it convenient for individuals along 6th Street to even walk over to Town Square, and I surely hope that you will provide sidewalks on each side. It seems like a 10-foot is very narrow. That's why I question that this seems to be slipping through with a city-owned property without sidewalks. I don't understand it.
Thank you. Before I open it up to the council, I'd like to recognize the city planner, Doug Seymour.
Thank you and good evening. A couple of things. Doug Seymour, Director of Community Development. First and foremost, I just wanted to thank the Commission and in particular thank Jason Luther for working with the city. This is one of those rare instances where we were able to work with the applicant and where things fell into line such that we were able to think a little bit down the road as far as what Drexel Avenue might be, what 6th Street, what that intersection might be, and to work with the property owner to secure the necessary right of way for that. You'll recall that the earlier iterations of the plan showed a site plan right up against the corner, which, technically could have happened. But I think that it took great foresight on the part of staff and the property owner to realize that that's probably not the best thing for the city or for the development to have to come back in, year, 2 years, 3 years to eat into that property with the additional right of way that it eats into the landscaping. It just creates a poorer development. And I think the opportunity to secure the additional right of way, and it's an additional 10 feet on Drexel Avenue, allows us to do the proper planning for the ultimate Drexel Avenue, which will include sidewalks. The timing of that might be a little bit different, because what we don't necessarily want to see is to have an investment go in there only to be ripped up a year or 2 years later for a much more comprehensive sidewalk system, which is the plan at this point in time. So, Arden, I hear you. We've always been in agreement on sidewalks. There will be sidewalks. It may not just be right of way on this.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open it up to the council.
Yeah, I have a question. The property that we're giving to the developer, how much is that is floodplain, and how much is that of usable land? Is there anything that the developer can use for expansion?
Yes. Yes, all of the land that is being exchanged and given to 600 West Drexel is outside of floodplain boundaries, so it's all usable land.
Okay, because I know there's a creek that runs through there.
Right. Yeah, it's outside of that boundary. It's about 5 feet outside of that boundary, in fact.
Okay, so most of it is usable if he does expand his business.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none. I just have one comment. It just kind of compiles on what Doug Seymour said. This is a case where the developer and the city got together and cooperated greatly for the benefit not only of the developer but of the city on the whole. Sometimes we try to move as quickly as we can to get development in, and I think this is a case where parties got together and for mutual benefit really got it right for the city's sake. So with that, no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. Kavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that they favorably consider the exchange of a portion of city-owned land at 7600 South 6th Street with portions of 600 West Drexel Avenue.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Great. Motion carries. We will move on to 4B, rezone conditional use permit amendment. Carrie.
As mentioned in the previous item, these first three items on the agenda are all related. This is actually rezoning the portion of the property and including that portion of the property that we just discussed with the existing conditional use and zoning for the property at 600 West Drexel, so that there is the appropriate zoning and inclusion for legal descriptions. So what we are asking for is that portion to be rezoned from M1 manufacturing to B2 community business, which is exactly the zoning that was approved for 600 West Drexel earlier this year. Also with a conditional use permit amendment to the legal description, just so that that additional property is included in the original conditional use permit for the drive-through. This is extending or adding rather about 9,454 square feet to that legal description. This is the amended site plan showing how the layout of the land was, or of the development was switched slightly so that it could accommodate those setback requirements after the donation of the right-of-way. CSM that would combine the properties is also on the agenda. It's the next item. Staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that a portion of the property at 7600 South 6th Street be rezoned from M1 Manufacturing to B2 Community Business, and that the legal description in Section 1 of the existing conditional use permit for 600 West Drexel is amended to include the rezoned property after a public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
At this time, I see no comment cards filled out. Would anybody like to speak on this? We'll open it up to the committee. Questions?
Cut and dry.
Pretty cut and dry, I agree. Okay, with that, entertain a motion.
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission recommends to the Common Council that a portion of the property at 7600 South 6th Street be rezoned from M1 Manufacturing to B2 Community Business, and that the legal description in Section 1 of the conditional use permit for 600 West Drexel is amended to include the rezoning property after a public hearing.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Excellent. We will move on to 4C, and again, it's another related item. Carrie.
What I'm going to bring up here is the proposed CSM showing the combination of the property. It's including, it shows the exchange of land for the public right-of-way. Also, it shows the proposed lot sizes. Outlot 1, which is the city-owned property, following the reconfiguration will be 1.599 acres. 600 West Drexel Avenue will be increased to 0.787 acres. Again, no portion of the floodway is included in or affected by the exchange. Staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map for the properties at 7600 South 6th Street and 600 West Drexel Avenue be approved with the condition that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and states statutes are made prior to recording. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Again, related item, as I said, we're trying to work as well as we can with the developer and get it all set and ready to go. If there's any comments from the audience, I don't see any slips made out. Seeing none, I'll open it up to the council.
I just want to mention that I applaud the efforts on our planning department. I mean, looking at all three of these items, the complexities, looking at all the nuances, I think they really did a great job here to try to get the best use and the most use out of this little corner. So thank you very much.
Else? Seeing none, motion?
Johnston moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map for the properties at 7600 South 6th Street and 600 West Drexel Avenue be approved with the following condition. All technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Great. We're going to move on. As I mentioned earlier, 4D is being held. We'll get us to 4E, zoning text amendment regarding LED lighting. Pete?
That'll be me. Staff has observed over the last 6 to 9 months additions to some of the businesses when it comes to their lighting of their place. And so we were looking internally as staff of, should we regulate it? If we do, what should be done? And so over the past 6 months, we've been actually looking at it of what would balance a business's ability to identify themselves, have them stand out, but also balance that with the character that the city of Oak Creek, what we see as the city of Oak Creek. And I don't know if any of you get the Journal Sentinel subscription, but probably mid-January, was it? There was an article about these LED lighting of windows and buildings throughout the city, and that it seems to be a new cost-efficient way to stand out from everyone else. So staff has done some research and wanted to bring before this commission, get your reaction, and if you think, staff is heading in the right direction, because we believe that we should have some sort of regulation when it comes to the amount of lighting that one can have on their building. The thought is, it's Christmas time, people put lights up, that's great, but it's 24/7 now. They are cheap to use. I believe they're like 10 cents a day to light up all their windows. And so tonight before you, I will show you what it is that the city is proposing for a text amendment to the exterior lighting code. In addition, there are 2 other changes that we want to propose as well, and I'll get that into that in a few minutes. Right now, the city doesn't regulate this type of accent lighting. We have no accent lighting regulation. Staff feels that if there's going to be accent lighting, it should be something that is done before the Plan Commission and reviewed by them as to see if it fits within the character of the city of Oak Creek. One of the things in the ordinance that we're proposing is that the lights be clear or white LEDs. These LEDs can come in a rainbow. Every day they can pick a new color. For example, the most recent business who have installed these lights is the Pineapple Cafe. And if you notice that they have green LED lighting in every part of their windows, as well as on the exterior wall sign. When it first put up, it was purple and green. I think for the past week or so, it's been green. But our thought is that we should have a consistent look if you're going to use these LED lighting. Also, we feel that it should be only installed horizontally. The reason we mentioned that is that if you want to do the roof's edge or a canopy, that's great. You're accenting the building and not just accenting all your glazing that you have available on your property or for your business. It almost acts as another opportunity to light up the facade of a building without much, not adding much to the character of the neighborhood. Having said that, and in your packet, I have a proposed ordinance that talks about amending, the section for architectural. I can say that word. I can. Architectural element lighting. It's section 5, sub F. And this, I wasn't the great creator of this code. This was modeled after a community in Colorado that adopted this ordinance, similar ordinance, in 2012. And so it's not something that's brand new. There are other communities in the country that are looking at regulating this type of lighting. At this time, all our neighboring communities do not have any ordinances on the books. If you did read that article, they talked about West Allis and Greenfield are in the process of reviewing a possible code ordinance for regulating these lights. The other section of code that needs to be modified in the electrical section deals with what type of permitted outdoor lighting fixtures. When the code was last revised, LED was a concept, that was going to come around the bend at some time. And so the electrical inspector wanted to update our code to include LEDs as a permitted lighting type. We did include still in that section of ordinance, there will be, other lighting technology may be used at a future date, kind of left it open. So when the next technology comes down the pike, we still have it. But the electrical inspector wanted to specifically cite LED lighting as a permitted lighting type. And then the last section that they wanted to amend deals with photometric plans. Oftentimes, or when a development comes, part of the review, a lot of times you'll see a conditions of approval is that the lighting plan be approved by the electrical inspector. Well, when they do these photometric plans, they show the site and they have numbers calculated showing the number of lumens as it spreads out across the site. Well, the firms that are doing these tests can, show these numbers in pretty small level scale. So they get a lot of zeros on the perimeter. And so they average these zeros into their lighting and say, oh, we're well below a half-foot candle. Well, really, they aren't because they're just lowering their average. It's kind of a fun math thing that they're doing. So to close that loophole and to help minimize overlighting of sites, we're proposing to include the phrase where the sub does not, let's see here, let me get my right section here. 4, here we go. A point of 0 on the photometric data test report shall not be used in calculating illumination levels of uniformity. So basically, we want to give us the average of what you're lighting, not what you're not lighting. So that's another section in here that we want to have changed. And actually, there's another section of code too, under section 3, and the ordinance sub 6, talking about the maximum illumination level under any outdoor canopy. There is a state law that pertains to refueling canopies. Right now, we don't have that in our ordinance. So right now, there's a conflict between city ordinance and state statute regarding maximum illumination levels under these type of refueling canopies. So we added the section, the subsection does not apply to diesel and gasoline canopies or refueling islands. So those are the changes that I'm proposing. 3 of them are pretty much technical cleanup of our code. The one that I would like to hear some discussion on is the proposal for the LED lighting. Having said that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission recommends amending section 170808 outdoor lighting, the regulating exterior accent lighting and photometric plans, and including LED fixtures as a permitted lighting type.
Thank you, Pete. I have no cards. Would anybody change their mind and would like to speak on the subject? Mr. Dagner.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania. I don't understand why there is not a maximum foot candle listed in this ordinance. Or did I miss it?
Well, the foot candle, can I take this one, Pete?
Sure.
When they calculate what the foot candles are, it varies on the use. So if you're in a parking lot, it's one thing. If you're on the exterior of a building, a sidewalk, if you're in a hallway, the foot candles vary, so they didn't call it out. What they're really doing, as Pete kind of alluded to with the new LEDs, they take the whole surface area, calculate into zeros where the lighting's not spreading, and they're saying they're using less light than they actually are. So,
because I don't understand how you can have an ordinance. Essentially, these are acting as signs for the business, as you can see on the pineapple arrangement. What?
I was talking more about the photometrics. When you
Oh,
mentioned foot
okay.
candles. If you look in what they're calling for on the LEDs, I think they call out no more than 300 lumens. Am I correct in that?
I didn't see that in here, though.
In for the section for building accent lighting,
Yeah.
it's 300 lumens is the maximum.
Yep, that's what I
But
thought.
there is a different section in the code, Arden, that's not referenced here, because these are just the sections that are being amended.
Oh, that's what I was hoping.
Yes.
Because it said under section 3, item 6, there, not exceed foot candles. So I would expect it to be in there
Yeah, it's in a different section of the code, and it's a half-foot candle.
because it's fairly easy to check the illumination, and yet this particular lighting, I'm glad to see you're addressing it because it just hits me in the face as you're traveling down streets that used to be fairly lighted by outdoor lighting and street lamps, and especially when you have a lot of traffic, like on Howell Avenue, when we have stop and go and wait signs, and all once aside the street, you have these enormous bank of yellow LED lights. I mean, to me, it's a distraction. My eyes are easily distracted these days, so I'm glad to see that this is being addressed in our code. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Council? Questions, discussion?
These pictures, Pete, here, Are these from within, or Carrie, are these from within the city?
No, these are examples just nationwide. I have a short list. I could just go with you. Pineapple Cafe, New Spice 2 on 27th and Rawson. If you go farther down 27th Street, there's a nail salon in the strip mall to the south of Pick and Save. They have lights. If you go around to the north side of that building, there's Novo Gym. They have LED lights in there. Weiss Auto on 27th and Drexel. They have lights every night that I've passed. It's a different color. Red and blue seems to be their two favorites at this point. Where else? Oh, the hair salon on Howell and Ryan, where the Maritime Bank is. They were kind of the first in the city. And if you go west on Ryan Road toward the strip mall where Yanhua Chinese restaurant is, there's a dry cleaner and a cigarette store. Both of them are lit up with white LED lights. And if you go to Oak Creek Plumbing, go east on Ryan, they have what we would see is more of what we'd like to see, where it's a horizontal across the roof line or across the canopy. New Spice 2 has that horizontal look, but they also have their windows lit up as well. I'm trying to think of a couple. Oh, Subway on Oakwood and 32 has it. So it's starting to spread here in Oak Creek. And before we have concerns about Drexel Town Square, thinking about, looming, we have, large glazing records. I mean, I think fortunately for us, I think Drexel Town Square has a little more stringent ruling when it comes to lighting and signage. But that doesn't mean the business that we were talking about earlier tonight in 600 West Drexel, they can light up all their windows and doors and stuff. And so staff thought was, you know what, let's not ban it. I mean, that's not really fair either, but let's try to make it uniform. Let's make it horizontal. Let's make it clear lights. Let's limit the brightness of it. So when you walk by, like Mr. Degner said, you get you almost look away because you don't want to have that bright distraction in your eye, especially at night.
And then how would you proceed with enforcing it? Send letters out, to a handful of people, or?
Sure. Right now, I have a short list. I would go over, go through the city and take an inventory of who has created their, did the windows and doors, make them basically legal non-conforming. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to enforcement, when someone else comes, they'll get a notice of a violation letter, this section of code. They would have so many days to comply, or they could come before the plan commission and request, approval for whatever it is they're proposing. And so right now we have it limited to horizontal. Maybe that's too restrictive. Maybe it's just you have to come to plan commission to get site plan approval for that. The idea is hopefully when development does come in, they have that foresight of what it is that they want to do and not just let tenants just light up every surface area they can afford to do.
It's certainly an attention, a way to try to attract business, and I understand that, but it does get pretty busy, and I do kind of agree with going down the path of just having the horizontal lighting, but I'm not sure what the rest of the commission thinks on that.
Fred, you have an opinion?
No, it's fine.
I have a strong opinion. You might not want to ban it, but I would. I think it acts as signage and should come in front of the planning commission when they are addressing the signage for the building. I think the white, to me, is the worst of all the colors. It's so bright. There's the Howell and Ryan. It's definitely distracting, and your eyes as well as my eyes are easily distractive. There's some places in Racine when you go down 32 there was like 6 buildings in a row, and it looks like Vegas. It's so bright. It lights up the entire street, and it looks really cheap. And so I think us stopping it at this point is a good idea, or at least reviewing it. If we want to go with the horizontal, but I don't think even giving them the option of wrapping windows like this. At some point it's going to start, it's just they're all going to have to do it to compete with each other. Yeah, I would love it if we didn't let anyone have it unless they came in. If they really wanted it, if they would come to planning and we would evaluate it that way. But if you want to just put the horizontal in there,
A few years ago, Buffalo Wild Wings had their building come through, and they had this lighting around their rooftop as well. At that time, we didn't want that distraction along Howell. I see this as the same thing. This is just another distraction. I agree with Commissioner Corella here. If we can get rid of it now.
Director Seymour.
A couple of things. First of all, I mean, towards that end, I know that there are legal non-conforming rights and status afforded to those who have already placed it up there. But similar to which was done with signs several years back in several communities, not Oak Creek, but you can still kind of amortize the costs of those who have already done these types of lighting systems and sunset it in whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, so that these don't go on towards infinity. One thing I might just suggest, and I apologize, I didn't get in the staff report, for those businesses that currently utilize this technology to light their windows, and I think you've got some really good examples on the screen here, I would almost like to see some provision in the ordinance such that if you do utilize these LED lights, even as non-conforming use, that then you're not able to have signs in the window. Because that really acts as, and it creates billboards, is what it does.
Guess I'll put my 2 cents in. First of all, I think it's a hard stretch to call it accent lighting. Accent lighting is something that I considered to be a wash on a building, similar to what we did on City Hall, that washes up over a wall or onto a landscape item. I would call that accent lighting. I would not call this accent lighting. I'm really not in favor of any of it. I agree with Commissioner Carrillo. I think it cheapens the whole look of everything. Right down to it, it kind of gives it that, not even a Las Vegas feel, more of an Atlantic City feel. This doesn't look good. And as far as it being horizontal, take a strip mall. If you were in a strip mall and there were 3 businesses and one business decided to do it horizontal and have 2/3 of the building's dark, there's one strip in the middle. And third is installation of this stuff, because it's all aftermarket. And these guys are putting it in. It's sitting on the outside of the buildings. It's not being inspected because they're probably not pulling permits for it because it's temporary. Whether it's GFI, weatherproof, protected, I worry about the installation of it and the maintenance of it. So I'm not in favor of any of it. I'd like to look at the whole thing. It would not bother me if they wanted to do something for lighting within the windows. They could do something that washes gently down the window with a diffuser, kind of maybe glows the window a little bit, but doesn't give you that bright light. There's plenty of lighting options to do without resorting to that showbiz look. So again, I would actually take it back. I would probably restrict this more. And I'm just strictly on the lights around the windows and what have you. As far as the changes that our electrical inspector put in, again, as long as they're up to NEC standards, and I'm sure Jim's well aware of that. He teaches code. He'll go on forever about that. But if he wants to do that in the calcs, he would know best. He's been doing it a lot of years. I trust Jim's judgment on that. So I'm fine with the second part of it, but the lights itself, I'm with Commissioner Carrillo. I think I'd kibosh the whole thing. Yes, Pete.
Well, we could, this was our first
Right.
discussion on it, and so that's why I wanted to have this discussion on it. There's definitely, we could go forward with the other proposed amendments and not include Section 5 of the proposed ordinance, saying, you can make a recommendation approving recommendation to the text amendments for Section 170808 sub C sub 1, sub C sub 3, D sub, and make that motion tonight. And staff can go back to the drawing board, taking the comments that you provided tonight, and come back at a later date, discuss it further, and then come back with a proposed text amendment for the accent lighting. It was just one of those things where we had these other changes. We felt that, these LED lighting is exploding. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's not just in our community, but all our neighboring communities as well. and hope to get ahead of the curve and not get too far behind where every strip mall is lit up like Christmas all year round.
And is there a consensus, up here that get rid of it all the way, altogether?
I really think we should hold this till a full commission is in, so that they can review it. Not that there's a big problem, but they have opinions too, and so I think they should be aware of it.
I do agree with you. I wouldn't be opposed to just doing the few sections on municipal code regarding foot candles. But yeah, I would definitely hold the second part. I don't think we kill it, but or we bring it back around.
That's you have more than you have options here. One is just to make recommendation for the text amendments for all those subsections that if you look on the draft ordinance, the different sections C1, C3, D6, E1, and say recommend the common council approve the text amendments for those 4 sections. We could move forward with those 4, which are more of a technical clarification of the code. Staff will go back, see how successful any other community has been prohibiting this type of use of lighting, and we can confer with the city attorney and say, hey, Plan Commission listened, and they think we should even take it a step further, and what are our ability to go even further, to maybe even go out to a full out prohibition of those lights, and then we can bring that back in March for further discussion. And staff is definitely open to it, but we wanted to definitely bring it sooner than later, so that way we are not watching building business after business, putting up lights. Chick-fil-A is opening up in a couple of months. We don't need extra lights on there.
Sounds good.
Okay. I will entertain a motion if anybody so sees fit to repeal just the text amendments in section 170808. Which will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend amending section 170808 outdoor lighting regulating exterior. Sorry.
We're gonna have to go section by section since you can't use the recommendation I made in there. So
it would be the Plan Commission recommends amending section 170808, section C1C, C3, D6, E1E. I think that's it. Did I get it?
Correct.
Guzikowski seconds.
Roll call.
Dunstan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Great. Okay. Regarding the rest of it, recommendation to staff, please bring it back around for the next Planning Commission to discuss when the full council's here. Moving on is 4F. And that is a rezone in the city of Milwaukee for Milwaukee County Park properties. Carrie.
Well, these
City
are
of
for
Oak Creek.
Milwaukee County Parks properties in the city of Oak Creek. What the request is that the county-owned parcels for what we are calling the runway dog exercise area, which is on your screen right now, and several parcels that are part of Falk Park that are not already zoned P1 to be rezoned to P1, which is Park District. Only those portions of the parcels that are outside of the floodway district will be rezoned, and no overlay districts such as the C1 Shoreland Wetland Conservancy or flood fringe districts will be amended by the proposed change. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property is at 709 and 725 East Oak Street, 7312 South 27th Street, 7951, 8067, 8210, 8245, 8290, 8310, 8351 South 20th Street, 1741, 1901, 2211, 2305, 2319, and 2361 West Drexel Avenue be rezoned outside of FW floodway districts and not affecting any overlay districts to P1 Park District after a public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Carrie. We do have one speaker on the subject before we take questions from the council. I'd like to have Teague Whaley Smith. He is the Director of Administrative Services at Milwaukee County. Please approach the podium. Name and address, please.
Thank you. Teague Whaley Smith, 901 North 9th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am the Director of Administrative Services serving for County Executive Abley. County Executive Abley has, in his administration, added over 150 acres of parkland. And as part of the overall exercise with parks is to make sure that they are all appropriately zoned. So our Parks Department went through an entire inventory of all of our parks to identify with municipalities if there were portions of any park that were not currently zoned as parks. So this is a cleanup of the zoning code to reflect the actual use of a park. For the neighbors that are here that might have gotten notices, there is no proposed change to do anything with this land. It is being used as parkland and will continue to be used as parkland, so there will be no change. This is a technicality to make sure that they are appropriately zoned for that purpose. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Mr. Whaley Smith?
It's pretty clear. To change it,
Okay.
no problem.
Chris, anything? Dawn? Brian? Mr. Degner, please approach.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. My question is it now going to be the city's responsibility to provide grass cutting, to provide fencing, to provide all this, or because apparently this is a lot of area that is not under the city's control now, and to me the cost of this should be addressed in some attachment to the recommendation as it goes to the council.
Carrie, or you want me to take it?
Well, I can just tell you that the zoning is changing to reflect that it is parkland. The ownership and the ownership responsibilities for maintenance are not changing. So it is just changing the zoning. There's nothing else that will be changing for it. So any responsibilities for maintenance of the land, that's on the property owner, which will remain the county.
There's the property owners on Oak Street there, who's
All of the parcels are county owned, and they will remain county owned.
oh, they're county owned.
Yes, these are county properties.
Oh, county properties. Well, then, so the county will maintain them then?
It would be the property owner's responsibility to maintain the properties, so it would be the county.
There'd be
Thank
no
you.
change in what currently happens. Just to add some comment to this, this came at the request of County Executive Chris Abley to make sure parkland is protected. As Teague Whaley Smith said, he's added 150 acres of parkland into the county. He wants to make sure they remain parkland. There's no intention to sell it off or push it onto the municipalities.
Jeanette Belstrary, 2120 West Orchard Way. We got this through the mail from you guys. Thank you very much. We have one question for you. You have this area, 8351 South 20th Street. The tax key is right there. You have it as RM1. Multifamily, and we want to know, has it always been that way, or?
I can't, I'm speaking a little off the record here, but in the land swap, when we did the land swap, the three-way land swap with the county, Northwest Mutual, and the city,
Okay.
that might have been a piece that was, and I'm not sure about the tax key, if it was part of that Colonial Woods and that runway there, and it might have been zoned that way
Okay.
at one time. And really, to the county exec's credit, this is what he wants to clean up. He wants
Okay.
to make sure loose ends like this remain parkland. It should be parkland. So he's really protecting the parks.
So anything with that side slash is going to be parkland, correct?
That is my understanding. Am I correct in that, Carrie?
what is under the current zoning, that's what's being changed to parkland. So anything that has a slash there, it means it's multiple zoning districts right now. That's going to change all. It'll all be P1 except for those areas that are floodway, floodplain, or shoreline wetland conservancy. So wetland areas that would also be preserved.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Again, he just wants to protect it and make sure it stays park. Nothing else? Motion, oh, sorry. Name and address, please.
I'm Urban Buju. I live next to 2110 West Orchard Way. I just follow what you said here. One of my questions is the RM1. Is that the current zoning or is going to be the zoning that's going to be approved later on?
What is current is changing to P1. So all of these current zoning districts will go away except for floodway, flood fringe, and C1 shoreline wetland conservancy. So anything that's zoned manufacturing, anything that's zoned agricultural, anything that's zoned residential will all go away and be P1, which is Park District. So
Okay.
RM1 will go away.
Okay. Our understanding was based on what was received here. It seemed like this is what was proposed.
No, the current zoning is what's being changed. Current zoning will go away and then it'll change to P1 Park District.
This shows the existing zoning.
Existing zoning. Okay.
For instance, if I may, and just,
Yeah, please.
if I can maybe, this only, again, just trying to reiterate, this only applies to the properties that are
land.
owned by the county. If there was something that's owned RM1, for example, if you see the RM1 that's outside that hashed area, that's not changing.
I agree.
Okay. So, I mean, for anything that you see in here, with that slash, that'll be zoned parkland.
I mean, one of the reasons is when we bought the property about 11 years ago, my neighbors more than 18 years ago, we were pleased by the 27 corridor plan.
Okay.
And those areas here were protected at that time. That's why all of us bought those properties there. But since those properties being rezoned, it kind of gives some correction to us how it's going to be used later on. So that's why we were concerned. Basically, we came here is to make sure that if any rezoning occurring here, we have to be involved in a way that our property values, our use for those wood area here should be maintained in a way that we keep that in a sustainable way.
Thank you. Any more discussion? If not, motion?
Johnson moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the properties at 709 and 725 East Oak Street, 7312 South 27th Street, 7951, 8067, 8210, 8245, 8290, 8310, 8351 South 20th Street, 1741, 1901, 2211, 2305, 2319, and 2361 West Drexel Avenue be rezoned outside of floodway districts and not affecting any overlay districts to P1 Park District after a public hearing.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Zukowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
And that concludes our zoning, other than adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 6:51.
Zukowski.
It's not to do with any of this, but
Just cut
on the
right
planning
before the
committee,
It's okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
Schmidt, 1820 Drexel Avenue. How many people are on the planning commission? Is this, looks like we're missing a lot of people tonight.
Down.
The mayor is excused and 2 commissioners.
How many, with the mayor and how many? 9 people. And we got 5 right here tonight. How do you make recommendations and go with this? Is there absentee ballots or something? I mean, we seem to agreed on things, okayed it, but what if some of the other people that aren't here disagreed? How does this work? I mean, if you got 9 people, you're almost half gone. How can you come to do anything?
As long as we're a quorum and we have the majority are here, we can conduct business.
Yeah, majority, you got
It's
five.
very- It's very much like any public board. At times,
Yeah.
people will be missing for one reason or another.
That's an awful lot of people missing tonight.
It's a rarity. Normally, we don't have this. The mayor's out on business, and the other commissioners are excused.
What I'm saying, okay, you got the quorum though, but I mean, there should be something that you can't do it because maybe the majority is fine, but the people that are missing could have their own opinions too, and it could change what everybody agreed on, right?
And correct, and it could, but again,
Right.
if you're not here to vote, you're not here to vote. But they are allowed. We do get our agendas ahead of time.
Okay.
And they can, even though they're not voting, and I've done this in the past. I've put something out and said, this is how I feel about it. If there'd be something huge about it, but again, if I'm not here to vote, I'm not here to vote. Carrie?
Well, I can also say that you're absolutely right. If there had been a different vote other than a majority here, then the other 4 members could have had some kind of an influence. However, the 4 members that are absent, they would still be overruled by a majority vote of the
Right,
5
no
present. So you're right. If we had had any other vote, there would have been an issue, and we would have had to readdress that. And these are all recommendations, so these do go forward to council as well. So council makes the final decisions on these requests.
It's fine if there's good reason for being here, but not being here is what I'm saying, you know, it's like, I go to a lot of these and it's very unusual, like you said, to have this many, you know, it's not right. I mean, we're a city of Oak Creek and the proposals, everything that was brought up tonight is very important for Drexel Avenue. And having this many people missing and okay a lot of stuff, it's not right.
Again, I would classify this as an anomaly. Normally, we're not missing quite as many people. Keep in mind, these people are appointed. They're putting their time out.
Correct.
For what they're compensated, it is very little, and in some cases, it's none for the commissioners that are here.
Yep.
So again, there are things that come up from time to time that prevent us from having an entire council.
Well, another thing too, what you mentioned is they're appointed, they're not compensated that much, but they're important positions in the city of Oak Creek.
And I don't argue that.
They should be here.
Don't argue that. So we did have a motion. Did we have a second, or was it just a?
Kuzikowski will second.
Actually, could you just restate the motion, please? Thank you.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 6:55.
Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Secret eye.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the week.